What are the legal frameworks for indigenous rights in the Arctic? Imagine living in a place where your ancestors have thrived for thousands of years, yet your rights to your land and culture are still up for debate. That's the reality for many indigenous peoples in the Arctic. To protect their way of life, several legal systems work together. At the international level, the main document is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It states that indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination, to keep their cultures alive, and to control their lands and resources. This declaration is not legally binding, but influences many countries to respect indigenous rights. Other international treaties also support these rights. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights set broad standards for human rights, including those of indigenous peoples. The International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination aims to prevent racial inequalities, which often affect indigenous communities. Regionally, the Arctic Council helps Arctic nations work together. While it does not create laws, it helps develop agreements that include indigenous voices. These agreements often focus on protecting the environment and promoting sustainable development, which benefits indigenous communities. For example, they include provisions that respect traditional ways of life and involve indigenous organizations in decision-making. Each Arctic country has its own laws to protect indigenous rights. Canada, for instance, emphasizes Inuit self-governance through policies like the Arctic and Northern Policy Framework. This framework encourages partnerships with indigenous groups and recognizes their authority over land and resources. In Nordic countries like Norway, Sweden, and Finland, laws protect traditional livelihoods such as reindeer herding, and courts have upheld these rights. A key part of these legal systems is recognizing indigenous customary law and traditional knowledge. These laws help maintain cultural practices and guide sustainable management of natural resources. However, conflicts sometimes arise when resource development or climate change threaten indigenous lands and lifestyles. Balancing economic interests with indigenous rights remains a challenge. Procedural rights are also gaining importance. Indigenous peoples are increasingly involved in decisions about their lands through free, prior, and informed consent. This means they are consulted early and fully understand the implications before any project begins. This approach respects their agency and ensures their views are considered. New legal ideas are emerging that blend Western laws with indigenous perspectives. These models focus on the relationship between people, land, and nature, emphasizing respect for the environment and cultural values. They aim to create governance systems that reflected the interconnectedness of Arctic communities and their environment. Overall, the legal frameworks in the Arctic are designed to protect indigenous rights to land, culture, and livelihoods. They also promote indigenous participation in governance and decision-making. While challenges remain, these laws help ensure that indigenous voices are heard and their rights respected in the changing Arctic environment.